in the pursuit against the Plishtim. And then, what does Shaul do? He sees the situation. We're traveling west towards Ayalon with the attempt of gaining as much of a victory as possible. It's already considered a victory. On the Plishtim side, there's trembling going on all the time. And now, Jews who weren't your combat soldiers, Jews that were hiding, Jews that were even favoring the Plishtim, are now psyched up. And Shaul says, how can I even add more pressure onto them? He makes like a neder, a vow, or like an oath. No one eats lechem. Why did he do it? Two different understandings. Is lechem meaning a meal like it often means in the Tanakh, and not necessarily bread, a quick sandwich? Because for you and I to make a quick sandwich, no, shine, 1, 2, 3, have a quick sandwich. Or is lechem denote a meal? Do you know what he has to do? Peel potatoes. He has to kosher the meat. He has to make the bonfire. You're going to make the sauce for the salad. A meal could take an hour, 2 hours to prepare it and eat it. Maybe that's the idea. We don't want to stop. We want our army to continue in pursuit of the Plishtim. Or is lechem here just anything, even tasting food? And maybe this has a spiritual manner. We know in the wars of the Jewish people, we've seen and noticed that at the time of war, right before the war, there's a fast going on in order to arouse Shamayim. Okay, and we talk about that, about Tanit Esther. Tanit Esther is a minhag, which we're assuming that the Jewish people, what did they do? They didn't, that right before they went to war, they probably fasted. That's why we're fasting. Okay? So, it's not clear. How are the soldiers acting? L'chumra. They're being what? They're being stringent. They don't want to mess with the king. You know, maybe that's what he means. Who doesn't know about it? Yonatan. He arrives to some sort of yar, forest. It's almost towards nightfall. He has his mateh, and he sees a honeycomb. Now, we assume that he hasn't been eating during the day, not because he knows, because there's no food supplies. Guys, there's no organized army with food supplies. By the way, this war came upon Israel without preparation. There was no organized preparation. Okay, the king is declaring a war. Next week we're starting the war. Would you please now, let's bring it from storage, canned food and this and that. There was no. It was at the spur of the moment. What?
I got a question about that.
Yes.
So, all the people from Israel, where did they get the swords? Because
they didn't get swords. Maybe they had wooden weapons, but they didn't have metal weapons, because we learned that the Plishtim have a monopoly over the metal industry, and no one has weapons. So maybe they carved out wooden knives, wooden spears, and so on and so forth. We don't see any mentioning of that whatsoever. Okay? By miracle, Chazal say that we had 2 pieces of metal matters, and that was by Yonatan and Shaul. But otherwise, no one had it. So Yonatan, not knowing the neder or the oath that his father made, hungry, sticks out the edge of his makel. He immerses it in the honeycomb, puts it in his mouth. Wow, all that glucose, all that natural sugar going in, his eyes open up. He can see much better than he can see before. And one of the soldiers next to him says, gee, do you know that your dad made an oath saying, cursed is the man that will eat bread today? Okay? And as a result, do you know that we have not been eating? And if we're not eating, we're a hungry army. We're a hungry and a tired army. And then, in Pasuk Kaftet, we saw this yesterday in 29, but we must put it into place. Yonatan makes a very sharp comment about his Abba, Shaul. And he comes down on his father, that his father is causing a tremendous detriment to the army of Israel. They're polluting the land. Look, I only tasted a little honey, and my eyes are better, my vision is better. Had the soldiers been eating today, do you know what the results of the victory would be? And as a result, we're told that although we're winning the war, the army is very tired. That's where we're holding. The army's tired. I mean, if they're tired, then they don't realize what they're doing. Are you ever tired? Never. I know not you. But when he becomes tired, could it be that you don't notice what you're doing? What do we learn? We learn about a terrible thing, violations of Torah, regarding slaughtering, regarding koshering, regarding not spilling the blood on a makeshift altar and eating before it. We see severe violations of Torah done by a tired, hungry, ravenous army. They were not eating, but now it's nighttime. Very good. And when it's nighttime, the pursuit is stopped. If the pursuit is stopped, there's no reason why we can't eat. So it seems clear to the soldiers that the prohibition was only during the time that we're fighting. And right now, we have a respite, we're eating. Shaul hears. He hears about the terrible thing. Let's read it again in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vayagidu l'Shaul lemor, chapter Yudalid, verse Lamed Gimel 33. They tell Shaul, saying, Ha'am chotim l'Hashem. There are so many people that are sinning to God. Lechol al adam. Okay, and eating kochim without is spilling the blood or not draining the blood. Vayomer begaditem. This is a terrible crime that they're doing. Golo elayom. I'm going to teach what to do. Bring to me, roll to me, Evan Gedolah. Shaul decides to get into action. He probably orders his servants to do it, to order the making of a mizbeach, so that things can be done properly. Pasuk Lamed Daled, Vayomer Shaul putzu va'am v'amartem lehem, hagishu elai ish shoro v'ish seyeu, ushchatetem b'zeh v'achaltem, v'lo techtu l'Hashem l'chol el adam, v'yagishu chol ha'am ish shoro v'yado alayla v'yishchatu sham. A very interesting involvement of Shaul in the culinary needs of the nation, or shall we call it the gastronomical needs of the nation. That look, I'm building mizbeach, you bring your animals to me, we're going to do things properly, and you won't sin anymore. That's what we call real, actual tshuva at the time. We're not waiting a week or 2 weeks. Remember, how does the Rambam write in the laws of tshuva that if you commit a crime, what is a sign of the action of tshuva? That you go into the same situation where you committed a crime, and in this case, you don't fail. Okay? If I failed in eating, so I've now brought the same type of eating food, and I'm doing the things in a proper way. So here we have a mark, Pasuk Lamed Hey, the first time Shaul builds a mizbeach, because later on in this book, Sefer, we're going to see that he's building other mizbechot. Yet now, Shaul has a master plan, and that is even at nighttime, Shaul wants the troops, after eating, to get up and continue their pursuit. Now, how does he motivate them? Look what he says. Vayomer Shaul nerda achrei flishtim laila. Let's go down. Go down. Remember, topographically, we're traveling in which direction? We're going west. We're losing altitude from the mountain area to the west, going to the Ayalon area, the Shfela, the lowland area. V'navoza behem. It could be a tired army, now that has eaten for the first time. You can motivate them by saying, you know what? If we run after them, you can get their MP3s. If we run after them, you can take whatever technological equipment they have. We can take the booty, because people are interested. You know, why am I going to do this? But if there's a material motivation as well, in addition to the mitzvah, then maybe you can do things above and beyond. An army that's been fighting during the course of the day, not even ready. I mean, the army was a makeshift army. They came out of the caves, they came out of the ditches, they came from the other side. All this was not, you're not prepared. You were not like, running laps for a week to get in shape to go to this war, were you? They were hiding inside caves. Okay, we were cavemen for a while, afraid of the plishtim. So if we motivate them by telling them you can take the bizui, the bizad, the booty, maybe it'll do. Ador aboker. The Kohen sees the situation, and it doesn't sound apparently too proper, how shall we call it, too favorable for Israel to do such a thing after a day, and he decides to go to the Urim V'Tumim. Vayomer HaKohen Nikrova Lo Melokim. Why don't we bring this issue to God, namely the Urim V'Tumim? Vayishal Shaul Be'Elokim. Shaul asks, Hayred Achrei Plishtim Hatidneim B'Yad Yisrael V'Lo No B'Yom Hahu. We want to know, why isn't Shaul being answered by the Urim V'Tumim? We said that the Gemara tells us 2 questions you can ask the Urim V'Tumim one time. And if you do, you're going to get one answer. But here, what do we see? That not even one answer is given. Why? Vayomer Shaul, he feels there's something going on nationally. There's a problem. If we don't spiritually make contact with God, then there must be a problem on our side. He orders the leaders of the nation to come together. Goshu alom kol pinotam, the corners of the nation, meaning the ministers of the nation, okay, that are the like Evan Pina, the cornerstone of the nation. Remember, King David writes about the leaders, and he calls them the Evan Pina, the cornerstone of the nation. And probably they know what's going on. Let's talk to the leaders, the ministers. Udu'uru will know and see. So as we learned, he now is very, very adamant at finding out what the problem is. He takes an oath and he isolates himself, Shaul, together with his son Yonatan on one side, and he plans to use what's called the lot system, hoping that God will be involved. They're going to take lots with the name of Yonatan and Shaul, the name of the nation here, and they're going to take lots, mix it together. And when there's a conglomeration of the ministers of the nation, the leaders of the nation, he believes that the Shekhinah is there and God is going to be involved in this lot system. Where did we see the lot system in the Sefer Yoshua?
Dividing the land?
Yes, dividing the land, and before that, with Yericho. The story of Yericho with Achan from the tribe of Yehudah. He did not want to respect the prohibition that Yoshua made not to take the booty from the city of Yericho. It's the first of the conquering of the land, and there too, Yoshua used the lot system.
From the tribe, the family.
The tribe, the family, the Mitri family, and then they found Achan, and then he was put to death. Shaul is confident that by using the lot system, Hashem will be involved, and we have to find out where the sin is. Okay? And what does he say? That wherever we find who the sin is, he's going to die. Wow. We have a decree of the king that whoever did the sin, he will be put to death. That's what he says. He's like a Beit Din. He's like a king making a decree. He's allowed to punish unlike the laws of the Torah.
So you figured out there's a sin, that's why.
He thinks spiritually there must be a sin going. Look, he's a scholarly person. He's full of midot. He's tall, he's beautiful, he's great. He has made mistakes, but right now is a severe matter. I want to know, can we at night or not go send our teams of soldiers after the Plishtim? That's what the Kohen wants to know, and no answer. Why are there cloudy skies? Why isn't there an answer by the Urim V'Tumim? No one. Why? I want to ask everyone here in Lamed Tet. When he has isolated 2, Shaul and Yonatan, and here the leaders, and he wants to know what the sin is, no one is answering. Come on. Do they know or not know what's going on? I think everyone is aware that Yonatan started the war, and that Yonatan also had some honey to eat, but no one is tattletaling. Why not?
Jonathan decided to start a war, and he also lead the people to win the war.
Jonathan is the success of Israel. Jonathan is the man with initiative, the man that's zealous to the honor of God and the honor of Israel, and we're not going to be tattletaling on him. Pasuk Mem, verse 40, Vayomer al Kol Yisrael, Atem tiyu le'ever echad. You're going to be on one side. V'ani v'Yonatan b'ni niya le'ever echad. Vayomru ha'am el Shaul. Okay, whatever you say. Hatov be'einecha. I say, what's good in your eyes, do. Vayomer Shaul el Hashem. And now he prays to God. What does he ask? Elokei Yisrael. Hava tamim. May there be success. that in the drawing of the lots will be true. Okay? Now, again, we said, we have to mention the point. It doesn't seem that Shaul knows that Yonatan messed up, but he wants to show that he's serious business. Even if if God forbid the sin will be at Yonatan, he is to die. He wants to show the nation he means business here. Okay, so he's testing the situation. What happens in the lot system? Vayilached Yonatan v'Shaul. Whose lot is caught? Whose lot is drawn? The one of Yonatan and Shaul. Ve'am yatzau. But the nation, they're exonerated. They're free. In other words, they are clean from any other lot. And now we have a problem. There's two persons, the most dominating leaders of this generation, Shaul and Yonatan. Pasuk Membet, Vayomer Shaul hapilu beini uvein Yonatan beni. Maybe it's the Kohen drawing the lots. He says, okay, you have two pieces of paper, two parchments. One is with the name Yonatan. The other is the name Shaul. Let's put it into the hat. Okay, close your eyes. Take it out. Vayilached Yonatan. Now we have a problem. Did he really mean it, Shaul? That he's willing to kill his son? Wow. He made a swear. Vayomer Shaul el Yonatan. Hagidali. Me'asita. What did you do? Is it true that you'd sinned? How did you do? What did you do? What does he respond? Vayaged lo Yonatan. Vayomer ta'om ta'amti. I had a little taste. B'ktzei ha'mater shebiyadi me'at devash. Now notice how I'm reading the last two words. Hinini amut.
It's not a question.
So one can understand that it is a question. Or he's saying, I am ready to die. That's what the Mitzudot says. Okay? In other words, or he's basically saying, I'm not afraid of any punishment. Why? Because I'm the son of God. I'm going to listen to what the king says. But you should know, there are Rishonim, like the Mari Kara, Hidini amut b'tmiyah halo shogeg hayiti. Some of the Rishonim explain like I originally explained. I'm going to die? What did I do wrong? I didn't even know. Furthermore, had we not eaten, we would have certainly been catching up with our army to catch up with the enemy army. We'd have caught more. And by the way, I'm the one that caused the war. I'm the one that I and my son, he's not taking, he's bragging. But he's saying, I don't deserve death. And what does Shaul answer to him? Vayomer Shaul ko yaseh Elohim v'cho Yosef kimot tamut Yonatan. Why? We have here a national dilemma. On the one hand, or maybe any hand, whatever Shaul will do, there's a problem. And this problem is causing him as well, his ability for the kingdom to be run and managed by him. If he goes along to kill Shaul, to kill Yonatan, what's the nation going to say? Not only killing your son, the nation's behind who? The soldiers are behind who? Yonatan. So you're going up against the nation. The nation clearly sees that the savior, the hero, the one that deserves, to be king, is Yonatan. That's what the nation understands. So if Shaul goes along, part of the dilemma, if Shaul goes along with the killing of Yonatan, you're going up against the nation. If the nation doesn't get what they want, and Shaul kills according to his oath or neder, whatever you want to call it, then you're going up against the entire nation clearly doesn't want this. So whatever Shaul decides to do, he has a problem in ruling as the king of Israel. Either he's succumbing to the nation, which you shouldn't do. If you think the right thing is the right thing, you should not succumb, you should not give in, you should not compromise. Or what he's doing basically is like a slap in the face to the soldiers, or a slap in the face to Yonatan that did such great work. Shaul has a dilemma. If you look up the Rambam, okay, Hilchot Menachem, if a king makes an oath, or what's called, there's a concept called Neder Milchama. Neder Milchama. What is a Neder Milchama? If a king makes a vow or an oath in order to motivate the soldiers, then that type of neder or shvuah doesn't have a permit. You can't just find a way to clean or clear yourself from this restriction. It's a halacha that's brought from the Gemara to the Rambam in Hilchot Menachem. And this certainly was like a neder milchama, right? This was a neder milchama, and we have a halachic problem here. Who involves themselves? The regular Jews, Vayomer Ha'am, the regular simple Yidden. Pasuk Memhe, verse 45. Vayomer Ha'am el Shaul, Ha, Yonatan Yamut? That letter Hey, do you see how it is punctuated, gentlemen? It has a patach with two dots. That's called Chataf Patach. Chataf Patach is a question. This is the Hey question. Ha'im. Ha Yonatan Yamut? He's going to die? Who's Yonatan? Asher Asa Yeshua Gedolah. He's the one that made the great salvation today in Israel. Chalila. Uh-oh. And now what did this group say? Chai Hashem. Remember what we learned? What is Chai Hashem? By the life of God, it is it's an oath. It's a shvuah. Im yipol misarat rosho arta, meaning not even a hair of the head of Yonatan will fall to the ground. If a hair will not fall, kal v'chomer, even more so, it's not going to fall. He's not going to die. Why? Ki im Elokim asa hayom hazeh. We have to explain this concept. He went with God. There's a mitzvah in Chumash Devarim, I think it's chapter 14 if I'm not mistaken. Tamim tiyah im Hashem Elokecha. Tamim tiyah. After the section in the Chumash of not going after sorcery, superstitions, idolatry, okay? People would go to the woman at the crystal ball and say, what's going to happen tomorrow? You've heard of the crystal ball? No. You never watch television? Waste of time. Okay, so I did tshuva. Okay, people would believe in sorcery, astrologers, and go to them to finding out what's going to happen tomorrow. God says, Lo ternachashu, lo ta'onenu. All that stuff is garbage. You know what garbage is in French? It's not worth anything. What should you do instead? Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. What is tamim? What is tamimut? To have complete faith and trust in God. Working on your midot and having full trust in God. Yonatan is tamim. Tamim here does not mean naive. It's a different meaning for the word tamim. Okay? Innocent, I don't mean innocent or naive, I mean someone who's complete in his faith and trust in God. There are several meanings to the word tamim. It's complete and perfect, like a non-blemished animal. What is a non-blemished animal called in the Torah? Tamim. It has to be tam, complete, no blemishes. There's a famous Rashi there, I think in Book of Devarim. Tamim tiyah. If you're going to be complete in your midot, your faith and trust in God, then im Hashem Elokecha. Then you're with God, your Lord. How are you going to be with Hashem? If you're completely in trust. Yonatan, my friends, had complete trust in God. He threw all his trust in God and said, God, if you want, you can reveal yourself to me. And I'm going to give a sign. If the Plishtim say when we reveal ourselves, they're going to say these words, then it's a sign that we're going to win the war. If they're not, if they're going to come down to us, then we're in trouble. He's willing to give up his life. He threw his life in front of God for the sacredness of God's name. Here, the nation explains before the king. When we say the nation, I don't want you to misunderstand Ha'am. It can just mean the multitudes. Here we're talking about the leaders that have gathered by the order of the king. And what do they say? They say to the king again, let's see it. I lost the place. Chalila, Chay Hashem imipo misarat rosh arza, ki im Elokim asa yom hazeh. Yonatan was so instrumental in working with God, going in the spirit of God. That's what Hashem wants us. To have faith, to have confidence, not to have doubts, to know what is the role of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. Not to have any doubts. That is Yonatan. We stop here in the middle of the Pasuk. We're now in a real dilemma. On one hand, who took an oath? The king. That he has to die. He has to die. He did a violation. For that, the Urim V'Tumim were not revealed. On the other hand, the nation, the masses of leadership are saying, no, we're not going to allow this. It can't be. This makes no sense. So what if you made a what? A shvuah. Your shvuah was made. He didn't even know about it, Yonatan. And he would disagree with you. Would Yonatan be the leader of the nation? He probably would not have made such a shvuah. And they're making what? Can you imagine? They're emerging on the castle or the palace of Shaul, and they're about to shake the building. If you kill Yonatan, it's like almost a marriage. It's almost like a rebellion. What do? Do you go through with the shvuah that you made? Or do you listen to what the nation is demanding? That's a big dilemma. We've never seen something like this before in the Tanakh. Amazing.
The right time to ask
Vayifdu ha'am et Yonatan velo met. You hear this? Vayifdu ha'am et Yonatan velo met. It's not clear. What does it mean? They did a pigeon. Rashi, in his meaning, they made a heter to permit the shvuah that they made. My dear friends, in the laws of nidarim it works. In the laws of shvuah it's not so simple. If you made a neder to do something or not do something, and now you said, I'm in trouble, I made this neder. We look for a petach, an opening. If you would have known this and this, would you have made that neder? No, I wouldn't have. So we bring a beit din, 3 judges, a minimum of a beit din, and we say that it's called a petach. We have an opening. And we're now permitting the neder because had you had this information, you would not have made the neder. You're sorry you made the neder. You have charata. You're sorry that you made the neder. That's the meaning that Rashi gives here, according to apparently Chazal, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? That's one meaning of the pigeon, the redemption of redeeming the nation. Another meaning is brought in the name of Chazal, I think, is that they paid monies with the Marikara, who wrote, was it the Malbim? 1 second. Okay, and Malbim also goes along with this answer, but I thought I saw, 1 second. Okay. The Ramban explains the following. Okay. There's something called to cherem. When we take something and we make it holy, and it says anything that you make, you consecrate and make it holy, lo yipadeh. If this is like a cherem, but in Torah says lo yipadeh, can't be redeemed. So how is there redemption here? The Ramban says the following: through Yonatan, a miracle happened. Had he not been righteous, had he not been worthy, God would not have performed this miracle of the war against the Plishtim. And certainly didn't know about the what? The prohibition of eating. So therefore the entire shvuah does not fall on Yonatan if initially he never even knew about it. That's the intention, that the nation redeemed this prohibition. They're coming to say to the king, it can't be, not a hair shall fall onto the floor. Even though what? Shaul is willing to go through with his shvuah and kill his own son. He wants to fulfill his shvuah. It's very important in front of the nation. That's another meaning. However, I saw one more meaning, and it's really powerful. The Ralbag, one of the great Rishonim, he says, the nation stood up and demanded justice. When God sees that the nation stands up behind someone, defends a candidate, defends, in this case, it's Yonatan, that's considered like a divine action. The people were united together to demand the life of Yonatan and not the death. That's called a pidyon. That's like redeeming. The nation came together and demanded something in unison, a common ground. It can't be that he's going to be killed. Wow. That's called a divine action, and therefore it's like a pidyon. We're now releasing Yonatan from any death penalty. So here the dilemma ends. The nation demands justice, the freeing of Mr. Yonatan. It's coming to him. He didn't know. And Shaul is off the hook halachically. He's not now violating. By not killing his own son, he's not violating. What happens as a result of this dilemma at night? Since Shaul was not answered by the Urim V'Tumim, that means, look, to run after, a tired army to run after the enemy at nighttime is not a simple thing. Therefore, it's now canceled. Well, how do we see this in the next pasuk? Vayal Shaul me'acharei plishtim. Vayal means he removes himself. He goes back up. He's climbing back up, going east or west? Going east. Uflishtim halchu limkomam. After this pidyon, this event of freeing Yonatan from the problem, and after that Shaul was not answered by the Urim V'Tumim, so maybe that's the answer of God. God doesn't want us to run after the Plishtim here at night. So now, in spite of the fact that Yonatan is off the hook with the claims that were just made, and there's no longer a shvuah, no running after the Plishtim, and now the war is not completely ended. That means the Plishtim are still alive. They can reposition themselves, reorganize themselves, and that's the fact. We won the war. This is the first war ever between Yisrael and the Plishtim. And now we hear about other events, how Shaul became strengthened in his kingdom of ruling. And here we don't see any doubts about his leadership. Pasuk Mem Zayin, as we come towards the end of the chapter. V'Shaul achar hamlucha al Yisrael. As time went on, Shaul captures the kingdom, meaning his leadership is proving itself. There are no suspicions, there are no doubts about his leadership. As we go on, we see that he is successful, for instance, in the wars. Vayilachem saviv b'chol oivav. We're talking about the Middle East right now, the nation surrounding the nation of Israel with our kingdom. No one that starts up with us doesn't get hit. Moav. Moab. Where is Moab geographically? East of us. Bnei Ammon. Also northeast of Idol. Ve'edom, the nation of Edom. We're learning about Esav in the Parsha. Where is that geographically? Southeast. Next. Uvemalchei Tzova. Where is Malchei Tzova? The kings of Tzova. Remember, we have two Arams. There's Aram Naharaim and there's Aram Tzova. Aram Naharaim is on the other side of the Euphrates. Aram Tzova is between Syria and Turkey. That is the closer Aram Tzova, right? There's a very, very wealthy, successful Jewish community in Syria over the centuries, and they're called Aram Tzova. I don't know if it's exactly the Chalabim. You've heard of the Chalabi community? The Syrian Jews. You never heard of the Chalabi? You've heard of them? Of course you have, right? A lot of them are in Brooklyn, right? Very wealthy community. You've heard of the Chalabi community? The Chalabi? Chalab was a center of Jews in northern Syria. And they were very much by themselves. They only married into themselves. And now in the last century, when a lot of Jews migrated out of Syria, and a lot moved to New York, they're very much to themselves. They don't like marry by themselves. Very wealthy community. But of course, we also have a lot of Jews that made it to Eretz Yisrael, but still, There's still a few left in Brooklyn. A couple, a lot. They're known to be. So look at the success here of Shaul. All neighbors outside the land of Israel, he's winning wars. Moab, Ammon, Edom, the kings of Tzova, and Uva Plishtim. So apparently there are further wars about the Plishtim. No, the Plishtim are not eradicated. But yes, we're now ruling maybe over them for the first time. And here in a very absolute statement, the Tanakh says, Uvechol asher yifneh yarshia. In any direction that Shaul turns to, okay, yarshia meaning he causes trembling, he causes fear into the enemy. Vayas chayil, he does valor. In other words, he collects a lot of soldiers. That could mean he has a lot of chayalim. Vayachet Amalek, he even instigates a war against Amalek, which we're going to see a different war apparently in the next chapter. Vayatzel et Yisrael miyad shoseo. Any entity that was ruling, exploiting, taking advantage, capitalizing their power, success over Israel, he removed that threat. He was able to remove any threat. What about Shaul's family? Vayu b'nei Shaul Yonatan v'Yeshvi u'Malkishua. Yeshvi is also known later as Ish Boshet. Malkishua, there's a town, a village in Israel on the Gilboa Mountains called Malkishua. Do you know where the Gilboa Mountain is?
Yeah. It's downside Kinneret.
It's overlooking the Beit Shan Valley and the Afula Valley. So we have Mount Gilboa. That's where Yonatan and Shaul lost their lives in a war against the Plishtim at the end of Sefer Shmuel Aleph. So next to there is another Jewish town. There's a kibbutz Mala Gilboa, and there's another town there called Malkishua, the name. V'shem shtei benotav, the two famous daughters of Shaul. Shema Bechira, the oldest one, Meirav. There's also a settlement there on the Gilboa mountain named Meirav. V'shem Aktana, Michal. What about his administration? V'shem Eshet Shaul, his wife is called Achinoam bat Achimaatz. That's right. Good question. V'shem Sar Tzva Aviner Bener Dod Shaul. He takes his uncle, and he's his minister of defense. Ken Aviner Bener. We'll see him later called in the time of David Avner, not just Aviner. We have a great rabbi that's studied by Rabbi Tzuyuda called Rabbi Shlomo Aviner. He writes in the Alon of Machon Meir. He was the rabbi of Beit El for more than 35 years in Beit El Aleph. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of a yeshiva, very important yeshiva in the old city called Ateret Kohanim. Okay, it's in the what's so-called Muslim quarter. And now he's the president of that yeshiva, the honored, distinguished president. He's given over. And he's called Aviner. So learn later, we'll see Avner or Aviner, Bener, Dod Shaul. What about Kish? Who remembers Kish? Where was he mentioned in the beginning of the Sefer? And we learn about the loss of the donkeys, the Atonot. His father asked him, I was Kish, Avishol, Vener, Avi Avner, Ben Aviel. So we have two important fathers, the father of the king and the father of the defense minister. Ner is the father of Avner ben Aviel. Vatia milchama chazaka plishtim kol yemei Shaul. Don't think he's on easy street. Whatever time he's ruling, he had problems with the plishtim. He keeps the momentum going, a war against them. Virashol kol ish gibor v'chol ben chai v'asveilav. Whenever he would see a combat soldier, someone that has courage, someone that has valor, he would certainly take him and make him into his special matkal unit, the king's unit, and he's getting ready for further wars, which we'll start learning tomorrow.